This is the big geopolitical headline now and for the foreseeable future. And they are further integrating into a security structure which is going to be coordinated by nuclear power Pakistan. So Prince Faisal, Pakistani foreign minister, the Saudi Arabian foreign minister, I'm sorry, he told this to Asim Munir directly. And then he said the same thing to the Iranians. So it's the implicit Saudi approval to everything, but also look, our umbrella from now on, it's slowly being coordinated, slowly and surely being coordinated, not anymore by the United States, but by Pakistan.
We have major breaking news that we are privileged to bring on this channel, which is Transition Protocol. And I'm here with my very dear friend, Pepe Escobar, who is going to take it from here because he is the expert on bringing this kind of news to you.
Thanks, Mr. Z. That was a lovely introduction. Here I am in my alcove in NATO-stan. Nobody knows where that is, by the way. But it's true. Today we have, I would say, an avalanche. Like we are skiing in the Swiss Alps, and suddenly we see an avalanche in front of you. And if you are skateboarding, sometimes you may deviate it. I used to skateboard when I was a kid, but nowadays we just roll with it. So get ready because from now on, you're going to have something that is absolutely breathtaking. And nowhere else in the world has this information laid out the way we have been laying out for the past few hours. So let's start with I'm sure many of you will remember The Sound of Music with Julie Andrews. The hills are alive with the sound of music. Well, the sound of music in Switzerland was not exactly the sound of music in Bürgenstock. It was something choreographed to the limit, but extremely dangerous, and it was on the razor's edge. First of all, we had the Swiss postcard for the MOU between Iran and the US. But guess who provided the perimeter? Guess who secured the site? It was Pakistan. That's a very complicated operation because we have Swiss security services everywhere, but moving side by side with the Pakistani intelligence apparatus, deep layers. That included 2,000 Swiss army personnel. They set up a 46-kilometer no-fly bubble over Bürgenstock, a Swiss Federal Council authorization for everything to proceed smoothly. The Swiss, in fact, collaborating with foreign government. And of course, all this scaffolding had to be in place because without that, Iran would not have sent a delegation to Bürgenstock to discuss the Memorandum of Understanding. Period. That's the most important, I would say, the preamble to our discussion. Mr. Z, correct me if I'm wrong as I laid out our Hollywood production today.
No, the information you have provided comes from an impeccable source, a source that cannot be impeached because of the access this source had to what was going on from top to bottom. And
Excellent.
that comes to us directly from the source.
Directly from the source. And this is just the beginning. The second most important point, which an international audience is not, in fact, informed about these niceties by Western mainstream media. The Americans and the Iranians never spoke face to face in Bürgenstock. Nowhere. Not in the hallways, in the famous sidelines when we have summits like that, or waiting by the espresso machine in a side room. No face to face talks whatsoever. Every word between the US delegation and the Iranian delegation was passing through Pakistani mediators and Qatari mediators. This was deliberate. Uh, there was an informal agreement or disagreement between both sides. So, yes, they agreed beforehand that they would never speak face to face. So, that explains, among other things, one of the most striking images of Bürgenstock is when Foreign Minister Arakshi entered the room and he went straight to greet and talk to Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif. In the back of the room, there was J.D. Vance. Arakshi didn't even look at J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance had a look of the deer in front of the headlights. But this was also part of the Iranians would never agree in a public place to be shaking hands with a member of the American delegation for obvious reasons. We could go all day long explaining the reasons. So Pakistan and Qatar carried all the mediation. There is a spin going around in American media, which is completely absurd, that Qatar is now uh, the place to go or the main mediator between the US and Iran. This is nonsense. They have, let's say, a division of labor. Qatar is specifically focused on the Lebanon issue and on the money issue. The main mediators for everything geopolitical, geoeconomic, and the bigger picture, and in fact transmitting the most sensitive information from one side to another, remains Pakistan. We're going to see why and how in a few minutes. But this is something that has to be very, very clear. Doha is running, let's say, the financial shuttle. They are leveraging it's around $6 billion of Iranian funds which are already parked in Qatar. So this has to reach Iran. 6 billion cash has to reach Iran, and Iran will make use of its own cash. By the way, very, very important. So Qatar was taking care in Bürgenstock and still taking care of this transfer, the 6 billion plus another 6 billion, the first 12 billion. Then during the 60-day period, there's going to be another 12 billion. But this is the Qataris are taking care of this essentially. Then there is a chemistry that formed, or we can say, was consolidated in Bürgenstock. Many people will be, I would say, speechless when we reveal that it's the J.D. Vance, Asim Munir, Prime Minister Sharif chemistry. There were some outbursts already. Vance in public, and this has been going around the world, of course, he said that there is an Indian in his life, his wife, and a Pakistani in his life, Field Marshal Munir. So that shows everybody how important is Field Marshal Munir to the Vice President of the United States. So it's an operational chemistry. They have been talking to each other virtually every day for weeks. And Vance now is calling Prime Minister Sharif a dear friend. I'm quoting. So the relation of Vance between these top two Pakistani mediators is essential for everything to work because they are, as we are going to see soon, deeply respected by the Iranians as well. President Pezeshkian arrived in Islamabad earlier today. He was greeted by Sharif in person at the airport. They were, embracing each other. In fact, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And this is a visual transliteration of how close they are and the trust between Iran and Pakistan. Very, very important. And of course, the relationship between Vance and Munir is also extremely important because the Iranians can trust Munir to tell to J.D. Vance exactly what they told Munir and Sharif in the first place. Very, very important. Another point that is, it was certainly overlooked all across the West. There was not only one Iran walkout in Bürgenstock. There were three in a row, sequential. And they always happen when the president of the United States started vociferating with no control, and always at the worst possible moments. The first one is when Trump posted, once again, threats against Iran, warning of strikes against Iran or bombing Iran all over again if they did not, and I'm quoting, immediately stop their highly paid proxies in Lebanon. Hezbollah is not a paid proxy of Iran in Lebanon. So obviously the people who are advising Trump, they know nothing about Lebanon and about Hezbollah. Number one. So this was confirmed by the Iranian news agency IRNA. They confirmed the walkout in real time. In fact, nobody else in the West did, for that matter. And each time when Iran was walking out, Sharif and Munir once again, and there is footage of one of these walkouts, essentially by Rakshi, when after he entered the room, and we can see the look in the face of Prime Minister Sharif. He is desperate. He said, how am I going to salvage this? So, okay, the Iranians, they see themselves being disrespected over and over again by the President of the United States, and it's up to the Pakistani mediators to, you know, fill in the gaps. So they go back, they talk to the Iranians again, and the Iranians come back, and they walked in again. And in one of these occasions, very, very important, we had a phone call by Prince Munir, the Saudi foreign minister, directly in plain language, saying that the negotiations could not be allowed to fail. This is immensely important. This is the, let's say, the hidden role of Saudi Arabia in everything that was happening in Bürgenstock. So they made two commitments, which, if these two commitments are fully executed, the whole geopolitical panorama of West Asia changes drastically. This is one of our breaking news in this list of breaking news. Number one, Riyadh would personally underwrite the 12 billion in frozen Iranian funds if Trump decides to, no, I'm not going to give them the money that is theirs, by the way, Iranian. So Prince Faisal asked Munir directly, give these guarantees to the Iranians. And then he got on the phone himself to tell the Iranians the same thing that he told Munir. Look, we have your back. The 12 billion, okay, if there's a problem with the Americans, we secure your 12 billion. So this means what? This means Saudi Arabia endorsing the Memorandum of Understanding, which was essentially brokered by Pakistan with, of course, Omani help and help from a lot of people around the Gulf, including the Saudis. And of course, in the background, in the deep background, China. Very, very important. And this has been going on. This, or I would say, this particular decision making and organization between the Saudis and the Pakistanis has been going on since June 13. That's a long time ago. When Faisal called the Pakistani foreign minister Ishaq Dar to basically give the Saudi Arabian blessing to the final stage of the MOU. This was reported a little bit here and there in Saudi media, and let's say in some nuggets in Western media, but not everywhere. But what did not surface publicly about all that is that the Riyadh is now the financial backstop of the whole instrument. So Qatar is guaranteeing that the funds will be unblocked, but the big 12 billion question, Saudi Arabia is saying, okay, we got your back. No problem. And then part number two. Please, Mr. Z, after part number two, I'll have a pause and then you can intercede and add some comments, correct me, etc. So part two is what you won't see anywhere else. And that's the big geopolitical consequences of Saudi Arabia underwriting the MOU between Islamabad and Switzerland. They are moving away from the security arrangements that they had with the United States so far. This is the big geopolitical headline now and for the foreseeable future. And they are further integrating into a security structure which is going to be coordinated by nuclear power Pakistan. So Prince Faisal, Pakistani foreign minister, the Saudi Arabian foreign minister, I'm sorry, he told this to Asim Munir directly. And then he said the same thing to the Iranians. So it's the implicit Saudi approval to everything, but also look, our umbrella from now on, it's slowly being coordinated, slowly and surely being coordinated, not anymore by the United States, but by Pakistan. And this is very much consistent to what we already have on the ground, which is 8,000 Pakistani troops already deployed in King Abdulaziz Air Base with JF-17 squadrons and the authorization to bring up to 80,000 troops. So that's it. This is just, let's say, a calcification that a process that was already going on for quite a while. And very, very important to, let's say, connect all the remaining dots. Sharif and Munir will fly to Riyadh later this week. It could be this Thursday or this Friday. And they will personally start the implementation architecture of everything that we have been describing to you so far. So this trip is immensely important coming after Bürgenstock and sealing the Pakistani-Saudi alliance, and especially sealing the Saudi approval to the Pakistani mediation and also Qatari mediation in the MIU with full blessing of the Iranians, because the Saudis not only told the Pakistanis to tell the Iranians, but also told the Iranians themselves. Okay, a quick pause because I know it's a lot of information for all of you to absorb. Mr. Z, take it away.
Everything you have said comes from an impeccable source. I say that again, and highly reliable. And everything that we have heard from this source up to now in the several podcasts we have done and broken the news has proven to be true. It comes maybe 2 days later, 3 days later, 4 days later in the mainstream media, but it does come. So I completely endorse everything that you just said. And I want to further reinforce
Mm-hmm.
one critical fact that may not have been as emphasized as it needs to be. The Saudis have assured the Iranians and the Pakistanis that they will not allow this deal to fail. Period.
Exactly. Exactly.
Period.
This is one of the key points in this. It's not now. It's not a kabuki. Now it's a serious play. Very, very serious. And this Saudi commitment expressed to the Pakistanis and also directly expressed to the Iranians is key. So Saudi Arabia is behind the MOU 100%.
100%. The fact that Qataris are behind the MOU is important, but not as important as the Saudis. The Saudis are the heavyweights in the region. No doubt about it. No doubt about that. They are the financial heavyweight. They are the heavyweight in other respects as well, because they are the custodians of the two holy places, the most holiest of places in Islam, which is Mecca and Medina, and they are highly respected for that. So for them to come out in a very direct way
Mm-hmm.
and say to Munir and to Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, this deal cannot fail. Exact words. I'm repeating to you the exact words. You cannot allow this deal to fail. We will underwrite any financial obligations that are not met by Trump. Period. And then privately, we are moving away from Trump, and that is now being seen by the world. There
Exactly.
is a pact, the unsigned portion of the pact or the unknown portion of the fact is that Pakistan extends them the nuclear umbrella. Pakistan has extraordinary capability in that regard, very strong capability in the region, backed by China, absolutely backed by China. This is something that everybody should know, and blessed by China. So, for the observers of the political scene in the world, particularly the geopolitical scene that is going to shape the next maybe 50 years, Riyadh is moving away from Washington.
And just okay, very, very important. This is one of our headlines. Riyadh is moving away from Washington. Coming back to our, uh, I would say, enormous problem at the moment, which is to make the MOU work. Very, very important. The promise that Saudi Arabia made was doubled by Qatar. So this means that Qatar matched the Saudi pledge. They told Tehran, look, the 12 billion, okay, the Saudis and ourselves, if Trump walks away from that, we guarantee you, you're going to get your money back. So now this is guaranteed not only by Riyadh, but also by Doha. Very, very important, regardless of what the Trump administration may decide or not decide to do. So you have two sovereign guarantors of the same tranche of money, and we can assume that for the next 12 billion is going to be the same thing. The next 12 billion will be part of the negotiations during the 60-day period of the MOU. The next point, Mr. Z, I would like to leave for tomorrow when Larry Johnson will join us. And Larry can talk about Vance and how Vance relates to Netanyahu now. And what is the, I would say, the new mystery behind the Vance and Netanyahu leadership. And Larry has good access to people close to Vance. So he can expand our discussions tomorrow. Another point, very, very important. Sanctions relief. Many of us are deeply skeptical that there will be meaningful sanctions relief to Iran, especially those sanctions that have to be um, approved. In fact, the sanctions relief that has to be approved by the US Congress. It will never be approved by the US Congress, and we know why. We can have sanctions relief from the UN, for instance, and some sanctions that Trump may, work with an executive decree. But this is going to be a very, very complicated issue to deal with. Not to mention the much talked about 300 billion reparations package. This is something that we should leave to the 60-day discussions and if they're going anywhere on how this package is going to unfold. So apparently, assuming that there is sanction relief and a reparations package, Iran tentatively, this is conditional. It depends on how things are going to proceed. They agreed, obviously, they agreed to something that is very obvious to all of us who follow Iran for decades, not to develop nuclear weapons. They they didn't develop nuclear weapons. The IAEA said they didn't develop weapons, and they have been saying we are not developing nuclear weapons. Period. What happens with the current fissile material, which is reminding all of you once again, 440.9 kilos of 60% highly enriched uranium, which could be enough to build, let's say, 9 to 10 nuclear weapons, according, among others, to MIT's Professor Ted Postel. So this will be negotiated, of course. But the central broker, once again, for this negotiation is going to be Pakistan, with support from the Saudis once again. So Pakistan is the trustee, let's say, of this nearly intractable problem that will have to be dealt with during the 60-day period post the first 30 days of the MOU. So, what do we have today in Islamabad was the arrival of President Pezeshkian with, of course, Arakshi. And he had, wow, a rock star reception in Islamabad, 21 gun salute, everything. Everybody was at the airport, Sharif, Dar, the foreign minister, etc. And very, very important, and the symbols. This is the first foreign trip of the president of Iran since the start of the war on February 28th. So he did not go, of course, he did not go anywhere in the West. He did not go to an European capital. He did not go to China, for that matter. He went to Islamabad. So that tells everyone something immensely important because he needed, and they started discussing it today in Islamabad, Pezeshkian and his delegation, with Arakshi included, with Asim Munir, with Prime Minister Sharif, with the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, etc. And very, very important, a figure that is immensely significant but is virtually ignored by Western mainstream media, the Pakistani Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi. And his role is absolutely essential, bridging, let's say, remaining gaps between Pakistan and Iran and solidifying the trust between the highest levels of the Pakistani government and the highest levels of the Iranian government. So, very, very important. In June 7, and this is something that I learned only a few days ago via one of our absolutely outstanding trusted sources on the negotiating table. On June 7, Naqvi was the leader of a delegation that went to Tehran to personally meet leader Moshtaba Khamenei and handing dual letters. One civilian, a civilian letter from Prime Minister Sharif, and a military letter from Asim Munir. These letters were personally handed over by um, Mohsin Naqvi to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Moshtaba Khamenei in Tehran. This is immensely important. So we can say that he is these characters in history, the people who are, let's say, not in the shade but very discreet in the background, are usually some of the most important messengers and actors and players, and that's the case with Naqvi. He is, let's say, the man who carries the information that cannot be just written down or you can talk over the phone. He delivers this information in handwritten letters to the most important leadership, Ayatollah Moshtaba Khamenei in Tehran. Very, very important. So, what we have today is the highest levels of Pakistan and Iran discussing how the MOU is going to progress, the final deal architecture that, of course, they will communicate to the Americans. Look, this is what Iran basically decided side by side with Pakistan, with the backing of Saudi Arabia, with the full backing in the background of China. And they will present this to Vance and, of course, to the American leadership. These are the paths. This is the path to be followed, essentially. And these are rational, not demands. It's a rational roadmap, if we can describe it in a very succinct manner. Uh, and of course, to be seriously discussed because it involves the security. I would say the indivisibility of security, to quote the Russians, of the whole West Asia uh, spectrum. And so this is the beginning of the new West Asia. And it's being elaborated by some of the main players in West Asia. with the backing of China, and way back as well with the backing of Russia as well. And of course, Thursday or Friday in Riyadh, we're going to have Sharif and Munir talking face to face with MBS, uh, converting the Pakistani Saudi relationship from a deployment of Pakistani assets to a military doctrine, in fact. This is enormous, not to mention the $12 billion issue, which is also supported by Saudi Arabia side by side with the Qataris. And that will solidify Saudi Arabia choosing a different path in terms of assuring their security compared to what happened for the past few decades. It's one of the geopolitical headlines of the young 21st century, to remember our great late friend Eric Hobsbawm. So this is Mr. Z, more or less, let's say I would say the as concisely as possible breakdown of a sequence of breaking news and breaking developments that go from the minutiae of the deal that is being it's the deal. No, I don't like to use the term deal because it's not a deal. Of the memorandum of understanding, of the, let's say, the vow, hopefully on both sides, to keep talking and then get into the meaty matters in the 60-day period between Iran and United States, with the backing of Pakistan, Oman, Saudi Arabia, of course, China, Russia, etc. To, of course, the big picture, which is the realignment of the security situation in West Asia. So, Mr. Z, once again, take it away.
Well, just a little bit of further elaboration on what,
Clarifications, of
yeah,
course.
on what you said. Uh, you are absolutely correct. Mohsin Naqvi is the least understood figure by Western media, and maybe not even recognized. But he is a very, very, very important person, and and he carries immense weight because his son-in-law is the leader of 40 million Shiite people
In
outside
Pakistan.
Iran,
Yes.
biggest Shiite community in the world outside Iran, and immensely respected by Ayatollah Mushtaba Khamenei. Immensely respected. That is the key word, respected. So when he brings a message, Mushtaba listens to it very carefully. So not only did he carry a letter that day from the civilian and the military side, before anybody went to Iran, Mohsin Naqvi was in Tehran talking
Mhm.
to Mushtaba Khamenei as well as leader Galibaf and Arakshi and laying the groundwork. So Pakistan is highly trusted by the Iranians for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that Pakistan is capable of providing security, not just talking about it, capable of providing security.
You mean
That is
providing security to GCC players?
correct, correct, correct. And establishing the security in the region, which Saudi Arabia is now enabling. That is another elaboration on what you have just said.
Excellent. So, shall we? Maybe we should leave our viewers all around. And thanks, everybody. The channel is progressing again after we were rudely interrupted by the U.S. government. Please subscribe, hit the famous like button, or this is how these things work, right? But
Yes, yes.
we leave you today with this sequence of breaking news, and in fact, is a thriller in itself. Everything that happened in these past 2 days in Switzerland, plus today what's going on in Islamabad, will continue tomorrow, and of course the coda when we're going to have the Pakistan Saudi meetings in Saudi Arabia by the end of this week. So tomorrow we'll be back, Mr. Z, myself, and Larry, and we're going to get into more detail in the aspects of everything that we were discussing today, but from the American perspective, and especially from the role of J.D. Vance now in these negotiations, which is not properly understood even by the Americans themselves.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for coming and listening to us, and for supporting our channel. Kindly hit the subscribe button and the like button because the algorithmic gods like that. And we will be back with information that nobody else has. This is our promise to you, information that is reliable, impeccable, sourced, and something that you can carry on in your conversations and in your own planning of your own lives because the world is changing. Thank you very much, Pepe. I appreciate your
Thanks, Mr.
cooperation.
P. Thanks,
Uh,
everybody.
we shall see you tomorrow.
Yes. Cheers. See you tomorrow.
I will